Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Restored to More. Today we have the guests of
Us.
Clinton and Charity. We're actually really excited. We had been praying and talking about this, and then it just so happened that we were going to record this week. So we're excited to be talking with each other. And if you're not watching this, because we upload them to our YouTube channel, we look like we're part of a gender reveal because I'm wearing blue and you're wearing.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of
what is it?
pink.
We definitely having no more kids. That's for sure. Love our babies. That's a whole nother story for another podcast, though. And we are so excited about where we're at in our family.
We are.
Maybe adoption down the road if the Lord really puts it on our heart. We'll see.
Yeah.
So we're not closed off to the idea.
No.
But yeah. So.
Well, why don't you tell everybody the updated news?
Oh, my goodness.
Restored to More.
Oh, my goodness. There's so much going on. Yeah. First of all, just thank you. I don't know. I just want to say thank you. I feel like I never get a chance to just talk to you guys. We're always interviewing somebody. We're always pumped about picking their brain and digging deep for nuggets of wisdom. And it's so awesome just to address you guys that are listeners and just be like, you guys rock. Like we're up to almost 4,000 downloads a month of podcast listeners. We're increasing our following all the time. You guys are reaching out with questions and I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a lot of stuff that's been happening behind the scenes with Restored and with Charity and I. And that is that the first thing is that we just became a nonprofit. Woo! We officially got our letter that we are a 501c3 literally 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And we ran it by our lawyer because the funny thing is like the paper looks kind of like just like one piece of paper. And we're like, is this it? And he's like, this is it. So great.
I thought it was going to be like a certification with,
Yeah, some cool like sticker at least. Like some cool gold sticker that looks like something you got in 5th grade when you like did a good job, But there was nothing like that. It was a cool seal, but whatever. So we're officially a 501c3, which means that all of your donations are tax deductible. We're going to be setting up that change on the website here in the near future, which is going to be cool. But we want you to know that everything we do is actually listener and just engagement supported. So Charity and I have been super willing, man, to just to spend our own money that it's not our money, right? God's money that he's bestowed upon us to make this whole thing work. But we've also gotten to a place like, this would be great if it was self-supported and not supported just by our savings and by our income. And we are going that route. And so you guys will be praying for us. It's going to be a journey of learning what that looks like, doing this full time and really helping people and coaching people full time and continuing to create great content that we think is going to be life-changing for couples that are wanting to find a way to thrive, to be just inspirational, not only to their family, but to their generation and to the world. Because we believe that marriage is the ultimate depiction, man, of what it looks like for Christ and the church. And we want to empower people, equip couples to live out that imagery and to share with the world what a marriage is supposed to be like. So we're excited. There's a lot of changes. Do you want to talk about some more?
I think that we'll wait to share the rest of what we offer at the very end. So you guys have to stay and stick around unless you just go to 2-speed and fast forward what we're going to say. But we're going to say some good stuff today.
Yeah.
So let's start off with just praying.
Yes.
And then we will go into questions that we've received from our listeners.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Sounds great. Father God, we just come before you and we just want to praise you and give you glory and give you thanks for all that you're doing, Lord. You have always been in charge of Restored to More. You've always been the CEO. And more importantly, God, we wouldn't even have a story unless you were willing to come into our lives and work a redemption story in our marriage and in our lives. Jesus, we give you all the credit for all that you've done, all that you're going to do. I pray, God, that you bless our listeners. I pray, God, that you would just come alongside them. You know that people listening to this can be hurting. They could be in crisis. They could be at a place where they're just frustrated. They're angry, even angry at you, angry at their spouse, whatever it is. God, I pray that you would just meet them where they're at, that they would understand that you want to be with them along the journey. You're not looking at them, waiting for them to change. You are coming after them, God. You're running towards them. And you love us where you're at, but you love us too much to let us stay where we're at, God, that you are a transformational God, that you are somebody who wants to come into our lives and show us what restoration is all about, God, that you want us to experience that on just a level that is absolutely insane and is crazy and it can be only described by a miracle that you have done. So God, I pray that you would bless our audience, bless Charity and I during this time, give us the right things to talk about, right things to say, and just to speak life. And we give you all the glory in your name. Amen.
Amen. So I want to start off with a question that I actually got from a friend the other day.
Cool.
And, she was just letting me know that she was having a messy day, just feeling down and super bitter and resentful about the ways that she's had to pay for the price of her husband's actions.
Oof.
And worried about the future. And she's asked me, how did you get over that resentment? Just time. And it was on my heart just to talk about that process, because I just want to share about where I was at and just validate, there was so much resentment in the beginning of our journey. There was so much just hurt and pain and frustration. And I just remember we talk about this a lot, like showing up to my first recovery group, my support group. And I was like walking up the stairs to this dark, cold room. I was just pissed because I was like, dude, like I didn't
do anything
to like get there, it wasn't through my actions that I now had to see a therapist and go to a recovery support group. And what I want to share is I totally remember that feeling of feeling resentment and bitterness and just like so frustrated. And at the same time, though, how I moved past that was realizing that this is my new reality. And I just had to come to realize that this was going to be our new reality for a little bit. And the more that I held on to anger and bitterness and resentment and frustration, the more I held on to that, then I wasn't going to move forward and see the healing in myself and the relationship that we needed. If I was just going to continue to sit there and just be pissed off at you, then I wasn't going to see the growth that I knew we could have and I could have for myself, because we believe in post-traumatic growth for sure after going through something like this. But I just want you to know that the more that you're able to just say, okay, like, does this suck? Yes. But at the same time, I also have an opportunity to say, okay, if I want to stick it out and be in a relationship with my spouse, then this is what it's going to look like. And just accepting that and just saying like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes on my end, because I know that we even share that with you, for the guys, and like doing whatever it takes for as long as it takes. Yeah. But for me, I also had to get to that place that I was willing to do whatever it took for as long as it took to get healing for myself, to heal the bitterness, the resentment, the frustration, and to heal me and the parts that were wounded. Do you want to add anything to that?
That's great. No, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
For doing that. I mean, I just feel like every time you share, I'm just like, thank you, because it took two to get through this for sure. I feel like you're off the camera a little bit. Why don't you scoot this way a tiny bit? It's not just the Clinton show. Perfect. Okay, great. What I'll say is I feel like there's definitely a part of that is acceptance. I had a talk with a guy today, and it wasn't about addiction recovery. It was about just where he's at. And I'm so grateful he was transparent and vulnerable. And we just said like, he's going through some stuff in his life, and he's always looking back at what life used to be like. It used to be this. It used to be great. It used to be this. And I think that's true for the betrayed spouse as well. Like, not that you want to go back to a life and a marriage full of lies, but almost like I thought it was going to be like this. So you look back, it's like, I thought we were going to be fully in love. I thought we were going to be intimate. I thought we were going to be honest. I thought I was being transparent with you, but you obviously were living a lie. So what's this all about? And then it's like looking forward to like, you can't really see it. Like, are we going to get through this? Are we going to laugh again? Are we going to be able to like enjoy each other again? Are you ever going to be free? Like, so then it's like this, what the heck? It's almost this what the heck moment. Like, what the heck? Now I'm paying for you to go to therapy. Now I'm having to watch the children while you go to group. Now I'm having to support you while you're emotionally up and down on a roller coaster. And I think it's true for the guys too. Like even the guys I talk to, like their wives are in that place as being the betrayed spouse. Like now they're in a group for healing the hearts of a woman who's been betrayed. And now the wife is in therapy. And the guy's like, dude, I get it, but I'm the guy that had unwanted behaviors that were spontaneous that I couldn't control. Like, of course I need therapy. Why does she need therapy? And I feel like there's this frustration. They made this what the heck moment where it's like, you expect something that should have been different. So now it's different. And then you can't really see the end. And so you're in this like, what the heck space. And I feel like what happens is a person has to change the heart from what the heck to acceptance. And I think that's when the transformation happens. I really think there is this desire of Jesus to meet us where we're at and to be present in that struggle. And I think we're human. And so we're always looking back, comparing then to now. And then we're always trying to look forward and be like, okay, when am I going to get there? And I think God's like, I just want you to be content right here. And that's why I hang on to Philippians 4. I think it's 13. It's I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But what's amazing is he's not talking about like, I can do all things, which means I can finish my degree in college. I can do all things so I can jump off this building and fly. I can do all things so I can, all those verses previously are all about being content in Christ in that moment. Paul says, I was shipwrecked. I was hungry. I was well fed. I was imprisoned. I was beaten. I was stoned, not with marijuana, with rocks, right? I was all these things. And he says, in the midst of all that, I was content. And I feel like that's what we're called to in that season of recovery is, are we able to be content while God is working on the inner parts of our heart? And the opposite of contentment is what? Being ungrateful, being angry, being bitter, being resentful, being frustrated, maybe being busy. And I feel like that's what I had to get to, a place of contentment where I had to be content in my recovery process. I had to accept it and go, okay, this is where I'm at. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't think I'm going to be here forever. And I hope our listeners here, like, you will not be in the same thing forever, because the only thing that's constant is change, right? Change is always happening. So this too shall pass. But how can I be content in the Lord? Not just because I just want to say it, but content in Jesus in this season.
So good. Mic drop. Okay, let's ask a question from one of our listeners. One of them is, are you still afraid of relapses, secrets, or lies creeping into your marriage? Great question.
Good question. This is more, I think you should answer this one first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good because you can share your perspective too. You know, I think, so first of all, just to like give hope, is I am not where I used to be in the beginning, always thinking like, oh my gosh, did he relapse today? Did he not relapse today? Just always like, is what he's saying truthful? He's acting off, he's acting weird. Does that mean he's hiding again? Is he compartmentalizing? What's going on? And so I am not where I used to be, for sure, in the beginning, where I was constantly nervous. I was an investigator. I'm pretty sure like the police would want to hire me as an investigator because I was pretty good at it. But I look at his phone all the time, you guys. I would look at the computer and the search history and everything. I would be constantly on our cameras because we had cameras inside of our house for our sitters and for nanny purposes. But then it became like, oh, we're going to use this as part of recoveries, and looking up history on our TV. And so, it consumed me. And now I would say they're far and few and in between. Very, very rarely am I scared of a lie or a relapse. I wouldn't even say a lie because I really believe that he has done a great job rebuilding my trust, but more so of a relapse just because it's where I'm at today is just, it's too good to be true. Like we've never had a relationship that's been this good, that's been this healing, full of freedom, that I'm just always kind of just waiting. Brene Brown always talks about it, just like waiting for the bomb to drop. Because I truly believe that we have a real enemy who wants to kill, steal, and destroy our marriage. Yeah. And so I believe that we're both never too good for sin to creep into our life. And that's kind of more the standpoint that I'm in my life, in my stage right now. So where I'm at is just believing that it doesn't have to be there. And I don't believe that he will ever relapse. Yet at the same time, it just feels really good right now. And our relationship just feels awesome and amazing. And I'm so blessed by it. And so I'm just always scared, please don't ruin this.
Can this be too good to be true?
Yeah,
or
please
something?
don't mess this up. It's just too amazing, it can't be this good forever. So that's where I'm at right now.
So the answer is no. But then every once in a while, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is this sustainable?
Totally.
I love your realness, Chair. Love your authenticity. Yeah.
Are you afraid of a relapse?
Oh, great question. This probably reveals a lot too, right? In this moment, you're like, how are you going to answer this? Like, are you not? We talk a lot off air, so that's good. The answer is things have just changed. I was in a talk with a shout out to a few people, definitely Mark and Debbie Laser, who have a certain philosophy that we agree with, as well as a new friend, which is cool, Drew Boa, which was awesome. We were talking about Jay Stringer's programs. And I think we really align with that mindset of really digging back to the past and interviewing what's happening. And so in the past, I mean, really what happened this past year was a whole new perspective, right? I went to an intensive with, what was put on by Faithful and True. I learned about different aspects of things, and it was really like, okay, let's understand. So what happened in that time was that I discovered these deep wounds that were in my life, that were in my heart. And so as circumstances happened, whether it was a loss of income, a transition in jobs, and really the work that I do, an extra child, as I put that, extra child, instead of like having a child, an extra one that was thrown in the mix. I mean, a move to across the country from California up to Idaho, where we live now. I mean, there were some big changes, and those are normally triggering situations for sure. But I was able to realize that, okay, even though I'm triggered, they go back to this wound of feeling inadequate, feeling like I'm not enough, feeling like I'm unlovable, or I'm not the best performer, this perfectionist, and this need for control, need for significance. And so as these things get triggered, instead of trying to escape it, I'm now willing to process those in a really healthy way. And so it's crazy to even say this out loud, to be totally honest. Like, I'm just not drawn to the very thing that I was drawn to my whole life. Now that's insane to say from a guy who in the height of my addiction was acting out 3+ times a day. Like, a trigger was you leaving the house. Like, you ran to get groceries, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna act out. There was no control. There's absolutely no way to process the pain that I was feeling or going through. I escaped every chance I had. And so for me to go from that to be experiencing some really traumatic things in my life this past year that were really hardcore to go through, some betrayal of friendships and some ugly things that happened with business partners, and just all this stuff that was really heavy, but not to not escape that, but to process it. It's tough, but there's not this desire to run away anymore. And that's only by the grace of Jesus. Like, man, I get all emotional talking about the Lord every time, but it's like, dude, there's no way to explain that except a miracle, and people that have understood this unwanted sexual behavior to a new level. And they've been like, stop trying to like conquer it, or like overcome and white knuckle and try to change your behaviors and put up blocks, and let's dive deep into that pain and that hurt, and let's find out how all these triggers actually go back to that. And if we heal those wounds, you're no longer susceptible to trying to pour painkillers on them or inject painkiller, because when you go back there, instead of seeing, and what's crazy is, I think why I get emotional is when I look back at those wounds, I don't actually see an open wound or a scar. You know what I see? I see the cross, and I see Jesus. And when things trigger me and make me feel insignificant or out of control or unloved, I analyze it, and then Jesus is like, "Let me show you how much I love you." And I find Jesus in those moments, and then I can make decisions that are helpful versus hurtful. I can make decisions to process versus push them away. And I can't do that on my own. That is 100% God's grace in my life and God's power. It is initiated by God, it is empowered by God, and it allows me to worship God. But I have nothing outside of Jesus. So that's a long answer to a short question.
So good. I love you.
I love you.
You know, you got me thinking. I was like thinking so many things when you were sharing, because this is why it's so important to go back and heal wounds that seem so painful and dark, right?
Yeah.
Because triggers
Yeah.
come up from unhealed wounds, right? And so if we don't heal those wounds, then, because triggers are just sharing something, your body is responding, and that's what's really happening in a trigger. Your body is responding to a feeling. And so when a trigger happens, I would challenge you to dive deep into it and ask questions about your trigger. Don't run away from it and just,
Yeah.
speak, because I'm all about affirmation, speaking life, speaking truth, all about that. But if you have not discovered what that trigger is saying about your body, saying about who you are, what happened, then I would challenge you. If there's a trigger that keeps popping up, well, then there's probably a story there that needs some growing and needs some healing and needs some just
Yeah.
diving deep into
Yep.
it and like having some major surgery so that you can say, whoa, that's what was underneath there. And then see that cross, like you're saying, because, or it's just going to keep on bleeding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would say just sum that all up in a slogan. It'd be like, you have to look back to move forward.
Mm.
You have to. You have to look back. You have to feel it to heal it. You got to process what's back there. And I was just telling you this morning, we were having a chat, and it's like, I think Christianese says you just got to fake it till you make it. And honestly, I even see Christians go, oh, that's terrible. We should call it faith it till you make it. And we change that word, and yet it means the same thing. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Therefore, I don't need to process pain or talk about hurt. I just need to be joyful and sing happy songs and sing worship music and say powerful verses that the Lord is for me. And if he is for me, then who can be against me? And I'm all about those verses. But I think it takes more faith to say God's going to be with me if I go back to these memory banks that are painful. Maybe faith it till you make it means that you actually have faith that you can handle the hardest, most hurtful memories that are back there. And you can go back there, and guess what? You don't go back there alone. You go back there with Jesus. And instead of thinking that you're going back to these corridors of your heart, these hallways of your heart, you don't have to go into those rooms and sort those out by yourself. Jesus is right there. He's the guide. He's the whatever you want to call it. I almost picture like a butler who's like willing to show you the house and say, I want to show you these rooms, and then I want to show you where I was at in the midst of that pain.
So good and so powerful. I hope you guys who are listening, if you haven't done that already, just take time to do that. Create space in your life to just, go away and, take a walk, go on a drive and just create space, a journal, a pad of paper, worship music, and just let it out and let it go. And it's a process, right? This isn't going to be a one-time thing, where you have your mountaintop experience. It's a process for sure.
Yeah. And let's get real. A lot of us have young children, or a lot of us are busy. We have corporate jobs. We're committed to church. We're committed to organizations, all these things. We're committed to people and friendships. So really I think a lot of us are looking for that one day to healing, and it doesn't happen like that. Like, I think what we did really well was we did, okay, what are our biggest responsibilities today? And those were like 3 to 5 things we had to get done. And then outside of that we made sure that we became disciplined and setting aside time every day for an hour, maybe 90 minutes if we can afford it. Maybe it's half an hour, whatever it is. It's actually daily to process those things.
And it's not forever, like
Amen.
we're talking about, yes, it's a process. And also, if you both are doing necessary steps towards healing and support of community and healing through trauma and unwanted sexual behavior, then our perspective is that you guys should have a completely different relationship in 2 to 5 years. Every story is different. Every person's recovery is different, but we really have seen tremendous growth in our relationship and other couples who are
100%.
both doing the work daily.
Yep.
I wanted to share one thing really quick. And because when you were talking earlier, you're talking about, we were talking on the subject of relapses and if you're scared again. And I do want to say though, women, you do have a right to ask your husband questions. And there could be like sort of an alarm, I guess you could sort of say, or maybe even a stoplight. And green is like healthy, it's good. But maybe just bring awareness to if there are big triggering moments, right? Because some of those things actually did scare me when we were going through some really hard times this year. I was fearful of, okay, this is normally in the past where he would relapse. And so right then and there, I was fearful of relapse, but I saw him coping with new habits in a healthy way, which guaranteed in me, it put trust saying, okay, he's doing the necessary steps towards him having healing. And so I would give the wife permission to say, hey, you're allowed to ask your husband questions if you see that a big trigger, moment happening in your life and him reverting to old habits.
Yeah. And we're not perfect, right? I mean,
No.
I love saying that we don't have this all figured out. We're a couple in process as well. We figured out a few things. God's given us the grace to do that. But it wasn't long ago that I went through a really rough conversation, and I was really frustrated, and we had a really rough time. And I said, I'm going to go in the car and I need some alone time. And I went in the car to pray. And you asked gently, but hey, do you mind if I take your phone away during that time?
Mm-hmm.
And what's crazy is in my mind, I was like, dude, I am not tempted to go there. I'm not even thinking about going there. I don't want to look up. I don't want to medicate. I'm going to my car to pray. But you also were like, yeah, but that's like super triggering for me, for you to be angry and to be in your car alone and isolated. And I had to surrender that and go, you know what? This isn't the time or place for me to get mad at my wife and say and be demanding.
Yeah.
I think that's why we have the intimacy we do today, is because I just say yes to certain requests, right? That's our slogan, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yes to requests. And it's like, okay, so when you say that, I just grabbed my phone, and actually, I mean, it was an older phone, so you probably wouldn't recommend this, but I rolled down the window and I just threw it on our front yard as I sat there, so you could actually physically see that I wasn't on my phone. However, I just respected that request so that you didn't get overly triggered by the situation already. You know, and you could, I think when a husband does a good job at saying yes to a request, I actually enable you to be a better support for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, 100%.
So when I threw the phone out the window, you're like, okay, cool. Like he's not going to struggle there. Now I can support him in this trigger, in this moment of frustration, of anger, of whatever it was I was feeling, because you're not worried about your safety anymore.
Yes to requests builds so much trust back into a relationship. I mean, if you want a new marriage, you know, if you want to transform marriage, well, I would definitely encourage saying yes to requests. You know, it's not a matter of control. It's not a matter of pride at this point. It's just saying, if you are both at this place, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. You may have to say yes to requests more in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, totally.
For sure. You said yes to requests like every hour, I feel like, you know, in the beginning. Whereas today,
yeah, you were pretty demanding.
Yes, totally.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
I'm not complaining, just making a statement.
And now where we're at is, you know, it's very few and far in between where I will ask for a request. And, you know, sometimes I'm a little timid in asking it because I know that it kind of makes me feel like, oh man, like I should be farther in recovery. I shouldn't need to ask. But that's such a shameful question. Should is always just
full of shame.
Should equals shame. So, you know, just really accepting, right? Like going back to the beginning is accepting where we're at and saying, you know, why not? Because I have this closeness with you today where I feel comfortable sharing with you where I'm at. And you were just humbly like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it was great and we were over it.
Yeah.
And you handled it with new healthy habits and overcame the trigger.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful. Want to answer that question?
Well, this is about you. How do you, the wife, which we'll do probably both, handle intrusive thoughts about betrayal during sex?
Ooh, good question.
Is that the one you want me to ask? If
I was going to point to another one, but
I like this one.
Do this
is a good question.
Okay.
I love this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So really quick, before we answer that question, I want to talk about where we're at right now. I mean, this is exciting stuff.
Yes.
And I feel like I don't like waiting till the end, because who likes waiting till the end? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, come on, just tell me what it is now. So one thing that we got to do is, as we built the nonprofit, is that we really got to establish what we're all about. And this question goes right into what we're talking about with how do you have healthy sex? What does that look like? So we have prayed about it and sought mentors, which we're so grateful for. And it's really been like God has defined us and given us just a deeper meaning of what Restored to More is all about. So you're going to see our website change a little bit, which is going to be cool. You're going to see our offerings change a little bit. I know that a lot of you guys have been reaching out for coaching. We're so sorry that we've been like, hey, like, yeah, we're actually not doing one-on-one coaching anymore. We found that group coaching was better. And so we're going to have a restructuring. And I don't think we're rebranding at all. We're just adding a deeper meaning to the brand. We're trying to get our point across even more. And we're diving deeper into what we're offering. And that is that God has instilled upon us that we are supposed to be all about couples thriving. So what does that mean? It means three things, right? It means learning how to get deeper and deeper in connection, develop communicational tactics and tools to build that intimacy, learning how to enjoy sex and have a desire for sex again, not only after recovery, but just in general. And I'm going to talk about that. And then also how to use crisis to create closeness. So what does that mean? Who's the target market for this? The target market for this is couples that are struggling right now, that are trying to figure out how to reconnect, whether it actually has to deal with betrayal, trauma, and addiction, or if it's just a couple that's like, man, we just feel like we've lost the love. Maybe they've been married. You know that most marriages after 4 years are already talking about divorce. Maybe they've had a kiddo in the mix. Maybe now they're up and coming executives of their company. They're kicking butt. Maybe they're having financial struggles. Whatever it is, marriage is not easy, right? The struggle is real, people, right? And so it's like, hey, why don't we just talk about that? Why don't we just normalize the fact that marriage is amazing and it's awesome and it's worthwhile and it's hard. And so we're going to develop these 3 different courses to connect with a couple based off where they're at. And we're going to offer a 12-week coaching course. It's going to be fantastic. The groups are going to be 4 couples, and that's going to build community. We're going to be the ones coaching them. So it's going to be one-on-one coaching in a group setting, which is going to be awesome. We're going to give homework activities and weekly assignments. It's going to be killer. So we're so pumped about that.
What are the 3 different courses?
Okay. You want me to go there? I'll go there. Basically, course number 1 is for a couple who is in crisis and they just found out about betrayal. They just discovered, okay, this is now part of our story. Where do we start? What are the proper expectations for a recovery process? Can we even laugh again? Is there even hope at the end of this? And I think a lot of people start a recovery journey and they just start all over the place. I go to my pastor. I joined this group. I went online. I went on Google and I researched it. But there's nobody saying, hey, let's put together a game plan for you that equals success. So and let's teach you how to do that as a couple.
So good.
Not just the husband or just the wife.
So good.
Course number 2. Course number 2 is for a couple who's decided they are going to work that recovery process. Going from what to expect to in the middle of it. Now they're in recovery. Maybe they've been in it for a month, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But for some reason, the connection is still off for that couple.
Because the men go to their groups, the women go to their groups, and then they come back home. And where do they go? What do they
don't know how to communicate. Nope. They don't know how to say, these are my new discoveries. I think guys are like, how do I communicate that I discovered this in therapy with my wife? When I share a new discovery, it triggers her. And the wives are like, I don't feel pursued right now. So what we talk about in that setting is using crisis to create closeness. That's good. All about when people say that this has obliterated our marriage, we say, no, this is giving your marriage a new opportunity. Yes, you have a crater and a piece of dirt now. You had this home, it got blown up. Everything's lying everywhere, but we come in and we go, look at what you see is a mess and we see an opportunity. We see the ability to rebuild an incredible relationship brick by brick, this time full of trust, full of honesty, full of transparency. And on top of that, full of joy, full of connection, full of amazing desire. And that's course 2. Course 3 is for the couple who maybe isn't going through a crazy crisis like betrayal, but they're still going, I know our marriage was meant to be amazing and it's not. And I want it to be amazing. I want my wife to desire sex. I want to feel appreciated by my wife. The wife's going, I want deeper connection. He has all these buddies and these friends and these coworkers and he loves our kids, but I feel like we're not making time for each other. How do we have a marriage that is amazing? How do we have a marriage like it talks about in the Song of Solomon, where there's this deep passion for sexual connection and this deep desire to be together? And how do we have that friendship? Why is she not my best friend anymore? Why is he not my best friend anymore? How do we cultivate a relationship that inspires our children and that tells the world that marriage is awesome?
We're going to be covering the 12 different levels of intimacy in that one.
It's going to be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to sign up.
Yeah.
I just got excited.
You can, but you can pre-sign up. What we'd love to do is, now that we're talking about this, if you know that you would be interested in that, we would love to hear from you. Reach out on our contact page, restoredtomore.com, the number 2. Reach out and contact us and say, I heard you guys talk about that. I want in. So if you know that you're like, dude, we need that. And I know when I say dude, it's mainly the women. They're going to say dude to their husbands. Dude, bro, husband, we need this. And it's going to be awesome. And we cannot wait to come alongside the couples. I think it's going to sign up quite quickly. We have to limit the groups to 4 couples per group because we want it to be intimate. We want there to be connection. We're going to lead them over Zoom unless there's enough people locally where we're at in Idaho. We might do both. But for right now, it's going to be over Zoom. It's going to be awesome. Let us know if you're interested. restoredtomore.com. Contact us.
Okay, let's finish with that question.
Go ahead, Chair. Fire away.
What do you do when intrusive thoughts are happening in the marriage bedroom? And this is such a great question because I totally struggled with this a lot. And I know Clinton has too. And I know he can share his perspective on that too. But, for me is I totally struggled with intrusive thoughts of I'm not good enough. I would compare myself to women in pornography, and I would just think of just terrible images. And first of all, we what I wanted to remember was that I had a real enemy, and he wanted to destroy our marriage room. He wanted to destroy our sex life, because that is one of the most incredible ways to glorify God, is through a male and a female who are married having sexual intercourse.
Yep.
And because it's united as one, right?
Yep.
And that gives God so much glory. And so first, just realizing like, okay, if anything's going to be super attacked, it's going to be our marriage bedroom. And just already knowing that and preparing myself mentally and emotionally before we were even intimate, just realizing, okay, we have a real enemy here, and just really just casting that out. And we would pray over our room. And sometimes even in the middle of sex, we literally would stop sex and we would just start having to pray in the middle of sex, which is crazy, because you're like, whoa, am I really involving God right now as we have sex? And it may feel super awkward and super weird. And you've always, for me, I compartmentalize God and sex. Like it felt super strange. Like, but no, God is there, and he is in the room with you. And so
he's like next to the bed cheering us on while we're having sex.
Yes. And that is so difficult to comprehend if you haven't talked about that and been educated about that. Like I was not. And so it was very foreign to me, but just getting in the practice of involving God in our sex life and praying and communicating with my husband, saying, hey, I actually feel really triggered right now, and these thoughts are coming in. And then we would just stop, because the goal is not anymore just to hit climax. The goal is for us to be having complete intimacy, meaning into me you see, being vulnerable, being authentic, being transparent, allowing him into what I'm feeling. That it's not just about hitting the goalie, right? It's like people joke about that all the time. And it was more so for us just allowing it to be this intimate bonding experience, where even if we didn't engage in sex and after that conversation, that was okay, because it was like we had sex in our conversation. Emotionally, we had sex. It was this intimacy where we got to connect on a deeper level.
So good, babe.
What about you, babe?
I love that you said that real quick before I dive in, because when we've talked, again, my life has been like, with addiction and with like, these behaviors I couldn't control. It was never like God was right there with me while I was acting out. I mean, sometimes for sure, but most of the time I was able to compartmentalize God outside of that. And you're somebody that's always said, like, you just don't make bad choices, because God's with you. Like he's right here next to me. Why would I say that about this person? Why would I steal? Or why would I do this or do something bad? Or because it's like, well, Jesus is right here with me. But it's crazy how it's almost like he stopped at the bedroom door. Right, I picture you're like, okay, God, like,
see you later.
Thank you for being with me. You can stand right here and wait. I'll be back in a little bit.
Yes.
Right?
So true.
And I love how you've grown in that. It's amazing. Way to go. So thankful to the Lord for that, and for you doing the work to understand that. Right? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. My brain has been fed poison for a long time. And even what I see is fake. Right? There's none of that's real. Like it's not real, but my brain has not been able to even decipher what's real versus what's fake. And what's crazy, we talk about all the time, is what's fake is manifested. And so there's a part of my brain that thinks it will enjoy fake over real. And so when you're face to face with realness, what a body looks like that isn't edited on a photograph and made to do this and all these things, you're almost like, well, is it even possible to like what's real when I've been fed bad things? And that has been a restructuring, man, that's taken time. And there are absolutely still times. And not long ago, we were having sex and a bad thought came on, and you noticed that let's just get raw and let's get real up in here. You noticed that I was not moving at the same speed, right?
Yeah.
And we were having this great sex and we were having, intercourse, and it was great. And then all of a sudden the rhythm changed. And you were like, what's going on? Right. And I'm grateful that you feel like you can ask, and we can actually stop intercourse right then and there. We can pull away from each other, and we're not ever worried now about the erection dying off. We're not ever worried like, okay, wait a minute. It just took me however many minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get you to a place where you could climax soon. And now, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. This happened. Like, I think before there's all this frustration, all these
so
other
much frustration. Yes.
there's this other narrative. It's like, dude, just get that person to climax. We'll exchange and then I'll climax and we get like, oh, this is definitely throwing a wrench in the system. But I think now again, it's the whole thing. Now it's an opportunity to go, babe, I'm actually having some really impure thoughts right now and my brain's going somewhere else. I don't want it to go there. Can we just pray real quick? And then Cher's like, absolutely, full of grace, like totally. And so then I'm like, hey, all right. And we pray and like, Lord, I know that my brain goes there because we're having sex and because there's something else going on in my brain. Can you heal that right now? Can you omit those thoughts? Can we focus on this? And then I'll start talking about what I'm grateful for with you and how much I love you and appreciate you. And what's amazing is that gets us back in the moment of, okay, let's refocus here. Let's get back on this topic of what we're doing.
When you say that, I just picture grace. It's having grace with one another and realizing that we got married to be with each other forever.
Yeah.
We have a lifetime to explore one another, to get to know each other, to, have adventure in the bedroom and create this intimacy that is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Unlike anything that the world talks about.
Yep. So true. So it's cool because I feel like in that moment, now here's the deal, like there is a time to explore those thoughts, like why they came in, but that we don't think that's right then and there. Like we're going to come back to that. Like, let's hit a pause there. Let's definitely reroute the brain. Let's focus on what we're doing and how positive it is, how much I love you and we're together. And then I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to interview that thought later on. I'm going to interview why that came in right now. And was there a reason there? Or was it just, maybe it was just the enemy bringing a thought in my mind. Maybe something we did that triggered that. I don't know. Right. But we'll come back to that. Let's enjoy each other right now. Let's not let that always permeate right now. And so there's different, obviously, theories of thought on that, but we do like hitting a pause button, praying about it, welcoming Jesus in that moment, talking about it to a certain extent, and then re-engaging in sexual activity.
Yes. Creating that allows safety in the bedroom, right? That in that moment, he is building trust with me when I see, whoa, you're not just trying to climax here. You actually want to have pure, healthy sexuality and healthy sex. And so you're creating trust back in our relationship when you do that. And we are learning how to build safety in our bedroom.
And again, just to be honest, right? A lot of the times that we had sex before, I was thinking about something else.
Yeah.
In fact, I could only keep the erection up if I was picturing having sex with something that I saw or someone that I saw, and it wasn't you, which is so sad, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's abnormal. Mm-hmm. I would assume I'm pretty normal in that. That in order for me to get an erection, to keep the erection, to get to climax, I had to picture something that was obscure, that was twisted. And to know that today, if that thing comes in that is twisted, I can pause, I can talk about it, I can pray about it, and then I can re-engage. And guess who I'm having sex with? You, right? Yes, I'm in intercourse with you. Guess who I'm enjoying my time with? You. And now those thoughts are like what I'm grateful for with you as a mom, as a wife, at your grace. And when I actually go there and I think about those things, it makes sex even better with you than with anything else, because there's no guilt and there's no shame.
Yeah.
And there's no condemnation afterward. And there's no conviction afterward. And so we can climax and orgasm and then go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And there's nothing like, gosh, I hope she never knows what I thought about. And I just think that's probably more normal than I think. I've never talked to a lot of guys about that, but I would imagine that a lot of guys are like, yeah, I struggle with that too. And wives don't want that, right? You guys want connection. And then I think we wonder why there's not this deep connection with our spouses when there's this whole other narrative going on in our brain that we haven't let them in on.
So good. Wow, guys. Well, that was fun. So if you have any questions about this episode, if you want to talk to us about it more, reach out to us on our contact page. We'd love to hear from you. If you guys want one of your questions answered on the next episode that we do together, please send in a question and let us know, like, hey, can you answer this on your podcast? We'd love to hear it. We'd love hearing from you guys. Reach out to our contact page at restoredtomore.com.
Thanks, guys. We love you. We're grateful for you. Again, our whole thing is made up because you're here and you're sharing it with your friends and your family that need to. You're subscribing to our stuff. You're subscribing to our podcast. You're subscribing to the different things that are out there. You're following us on Instagram. We're just grateful. And you guys are doing a great job. And we're so pumped to keep coming alongside more and more couples that are looking for restoration and that believe that they can laugh again, they can hope again, because we believe that you absolutely can. We believe that restoration is real because God is active and he's moving right now. So we're excited for you. We're grateful for you. And we're so pumped for you to be restored to more.